Hello, welcome to this space, this session with me. My name is Kim, or I go by Miss Synchronicity online. And today I want to hold space with you in a way that is going to help with any reparenting trauma or inner child trauma that you're working through in your body. Essentially, we're going to be using some inner child regression memories to process some trapped emotions, trapped experiences that are still in your body. I'm going to help to digest those and move them through with empathy, compassion, and hopefully trigger some oxytocin to come through you so that you can get into that more regulated mind space again. You can find that motivation to actually do some of the healthier things for your body, whether it be exercise or eating the right kinds of food, and just generally give yourself the ability to manage when it comes to having to give to yourself or give to others what you maybe didn't receive and were maybe even punished for your emotions, or just not really allowed to be who you were because you were trying so hard to gain validation and connection with those outside of you. That connection became priority over your own needs, over your own authentic expression. And when it comes to reparenting yourself, it can be really draining if you don't seek to release, first and foremost, some of this trauma. It can be a blockage that is in the way of your healing and your progressing into feeling better and enjoying your life, enjoying yourself. So that's why we want to do this practice today, is to hopefully release something, maybe recognize something about yourself and just find some compassion. Really know yourself a little better than you previously did. So I just want you to find a comfortable position. Let yourself lie down if you want to do that. You can sit down, or you can be listening to this while you're doing things. Whatever works for you. When we are overstimulated by some of the things going on in our environment, it could also be a signal from our bodies that there is some trapped overstimulation, stress, fear, etc. coming up as well. I think that's why sensitive people tend to get a bit of a bad rap, or don't necessarily want to own up to being super sensitive. It's because maybe people think they're overreacting or being hypochondriacs, or maybe they themselves judge themselves for not being able to face so much stimulation in a day. But more likely what's happening is the situation at hand, you can deal with it, it is bearable. But sometimes it's funny how it works, but sometimes our mind, our heart, our bodies are also bringing up a past memory at the same time, not necessarily consciously, but it's all kind of compiling together, a bit like it's a way of letting you know, your body's trying to let you know, your brain is trying to let you know that even though you're triggered right now by something simple that's bringing you into your fight or flight or your really emotional state, the reason that this triggers you, and you can logically say to yourself, this shouldn't be triggering me, is because it's also trying to let you know that there's something on the undercurrent that's going on. So for example, something simple that maybe isn't a big deal and shouldn't be triggering you or activating you, it is an invitation to go a bit deeper. So that's what we're going to do now. I'm going to take you back to a time in your past where essentially you felt you needed. There's two parts to this process, and I'm going to do the higher self forgiveness part, the forgiveness and the hearing from people in your life that mattered at that time, hearing from their higher soul. We're going to do that at the end of this practice. But first, what I want us to do here is essentially be there for ourselves. Because if we put other people in our life as precedent for us feeling safe, that's just one of those never-ending spirals that you're always going to be seeking outside of you for that safety. So that's why I'm going to maybe talk to the people that potentially hurt us the most at the end. And first, what I want you to do, though, is to find a time in your life where, as the wise adult that you are, and you can resource this, you don't have to be feeling like a wise adult in this moment. You can know that you are and have been and will be, and pull that forward from whatever time period, from whatever kind of imagination space you can resource it from. So right now I just want you to close your eyes and breathe and see yourself as this wise adult that has done all of the work that has been presented to yourself internally, externally as well, as often as you possibly could, and just see the end result of yourself. You're standing tall, you're breathing smoothly, you're feeling safe no matter where you are, your shoulders are back, your eyes are level, your head is just up a little. Whatever it is that helps you visualize yourself as the wise adult that is full of love and compassion for yourself, and knows how to be discerning and set boundaries in the right kinds of ways, so that you're always balancing your energy wherever you go. You are also balanced in your interactions with other people. There's just this sense of knowing who you are and knowing what is right for you and those around you, because you've worked on it, you've practiced. Maybe you're a little bit older, or maybe you're just in a good moment. So however you see yourself, you can maybe feel into her or him a little. What does his life look like? Or what are some of the simple feelings they're having right now? Are they able to recognize something simple and find contentment in that? Just these little things that you would love to call in, because you've experienced them and you'd like to. It's just this simplicity with life that is really sustainable and resourceful. and just overall balanced. So from this space, you are going to meet your younger self, a version of your younger self, in whatever space you feel most comfortable. For me, garden comes to mind, you know, some kind of secret garden where everything is contained and there are boundaries there, but it's also really free and carefree and luscious. You know, maybe some innocent bunnies roaming around, and maybe there's a, you know, it could be nighttime for you. Maybe you hear the owls in the trees, or maybe it's a beautiful summer's day. So again, just spending a moment visualizing yourself now in whatever place works best for you. Could be a beach, could be a house, could be anywhere really. Spend a moment just hanging out in that space, using your 5 senses to recognize what you can see around you, all the while keeping connected to that inner wise adult. Using your 5 senses to recognize what you see around you, what you smell, what you can touch with your feet, maybe with your buttocks sitting on a chair, what you can hear around you, maybe even delighting your taste buds with something that's really calling to you to eat right now. I can just taste some fresh citrus in my mouth, and just overall a warmth in the air, but also a light breeze coming in. And you're just there, feeling exceptionally at peace, but also excited to meet this version of you that is coming down the pathway. And depending on what age the younger version of yourself is, I just want you to give yourself one word to describe what this younger version of you might be needing. And sense into how they might be feeling as you watch them walk toward you. You know them better than anyone else, so you'll know. For example, if they're a little bit younger, they might be looking for safety and nurturance. You might sense that they've just gone through an episode that's making them feel really stressed. And you can kind of be deciding in your mind what you're going to say to them. If you see the teenage version of yourself coming forward, you might recognize there's a bit of a scowl on their face. They might be feeling like they want to take revenge, or like they just hate the world, or you might sense into their needs not having been met in some way, and maybe just recognizing what that need, observing what that need might be for them. So just watching as they approach. If it is you at your youngest, as an infant, for example, you might go toward them, of course. Just watching as they come and they're next to you, sitting next to you. And you have this moment now to connect with them in a completely non-judgmental way. You're about to meet your own needs, so there's no need for judgment in this case, because the reason why we might go to judging ourselves would be because we haven't had our needs met in some way. So we're about to meet that need now, And so we can be completely open-hearted with this version of ourselves. Just really there to hold space and safety and nurturance and understanding and just pure wisdom from the space that we're working with here, which is calling in our wisest self. Just looking into their eyes now, this younger version of yourself, looking into their eyes. Maybe you notice their body language is doing something. Might give you some more clues on how they're feeling, how this version of you is feeling, maybe what has just gone on before they come to meet you. Okay, so maybe you've understood the situation that they're in currently that is leading them to having this need be met with you. So you get to introduce yourself now. This is very much likely a moment, doesn't matter what age your younger child is, this is very much likely a moment where they were alone in some way, like really alone, and need you as the surrogate support for yourself that you couldn't be back then, but now you can be there for yourself. So maybe you're just asking them how they're feeling, or maybe you're already using your psychic intellect to kind of gauge the scenario and just putting yourself right then and there with them in that moment where they're alone. Maybe they transport you to that time period where they're alone, or they've just been with someone and it's really hurt them. They might take you there, or they might want some space from that scenario and they might just be right there with you on the bench of the garden or wherever you're sitting. Whatever works for you. This is a conversation that you're having with your inner self, your soul, your younger self. And you're meeting their needs by having this conversation about what it is that would really work for both of you right now if you were able to get clear on what you need. We have universal needs that are common to all of us, and so there is obviously going to be something simple that you can provide for them, like nurturance, safety, care, connectedness, autonomy. So just really listen to what they have to say. Maybe that you don't have to ask any questions, or maybe you would like to ask some questions, or maybe they just tell you straight up what's going on. So whatever works for you. So just listening to them. Maybe understanding something that they didn't understand back then or don't understand right now, and maybe offering that piece of information to them. Could be something as simple as, it's not your fault that this just happened like this. Really what you were needing, this can be to your younger self, was to be supported even more through this process. This was a very difficult time in your life, and perhaps the adults around you were not able to give themselves any kind of relief or regulation, and so they took that out on you, or they just simply couldn't hold space for you or them, and in a way potentially made it worse because they didn't have the tools. So that wasn't your fault. That isn't your fault. And in a perfect world, You know, that situation could have looked very, very different. It could have been a healing moment. It could have been a bonding moment. Even though you may have been expressing some negativity, it doesn't mean that you're inherently a bad person. It doesn't mean that you deserved any of those things that happened to you. Even if you were just being yourself and you, from your vantage point, were sharing some positivity or just neutrality. Again, it's not your fault how they reacted around you, the person reacted around you in that moment. So maybe just allowing yourself to grieve that more in that part of you, and almost apologizing to that part of you that you've held hostage, let's say, in that frequency of fear and shame and guilt, because that was projected onto you potentially. And it wasn't necessarily something that you had to hold on to, it's just you didn't know any other way, because again, you were looking to these people potentially as authority or there to give you support, and they were misguided in their behavioral approach towards you and the situation. And that's unfortunate, but we can now be there for ourselves. What is it you really needed to hear in that moment? You're loved, you're worthy. I support you no matter what. Just giving that part of you time to grieve, or maybe even reminding them of that self-esteem that is at the very tip of understanding what is going on in their life, and how these things don't equate to them being a bad person or them having something wrong with them. Actually, it equates to something wrong with the system in general at the time that wasn't working. The mismatch of energies and relationships that were going on that weren't compatible, but just, again, so many of us didn't know ourselves well enough to protect ourselves from some of those situations. And why should we? We shouldn't have to know those things. That's only something that comes with time and patience and a lot of hard work. So just really being there for yourself right now. Just recognizing your pain. Asking if there's anything other than space holding that you can do for yourself. Even taking an action together that is just something more fun for you guys to do in this moment. You may need to hear some wise words. Your younger self may need to hear some wise words from you. May need to feel an embrace from you. Some loving touch. Compassionate touch. There's all kinds of things that could be part of this healing with your younger self. And whatever it is, even if it's bawling your eyes out, feeling really, really terrible, just holding that space of compassion, giving yourself the empathy that you need, holding yourself in a lot of love and a lot of empathy right now, and telling yourself you didn't necessarily need those people to support you. And it's a shame that they couldn't support you and it was misguided behavior. But just know that you don't need that of them. You will find other ways to get your needs met, whether it's through yourself being more loving. You can learn to love yourself more through practices like this, where you go back and you practice in your imagination being there with yourself and what you would say and do. And you can also, when you get pretty good with loving yourself, you can hold a compassionate place of others in requesting that they meet your needs somehow, but not demanding that they meet that need. So that's why it all starts with you. And that's when we can move on to maybe hearing from others in our lives, whether it be back then or now. Maybe hearing from their higher self and what their perspective of the event truly was. Not from their lower self, but from their higher self, because it's most likely that they were acting from their lower self, and that's not necessarily something that we want to repeat in our minds. We don't want to repeat that behavior ourselves. We want to pull it up into our prefrontal cortex, the problem-solving part of us. We want to pull it up with love and oxytocin. Oxytocin helps us to learn much better, helps with neuroplasticity, i.e. your brain programs can change at any moment, depending on the stimulus that you give them. And oxytocin is a huge one that can really help you to learn something new in a way that cortisol and stress cannot. So we want to be pulling up this experience. But like I say, if you have to mourn and grieve, that is perfectly fine as well. Please do so from a very loving place for yourself. Please hold empathy in that space as well for yourself. Breathing through your body, loving every cell in that experience. And it will release from you. You will digest this memory and many more memories that want to reappear for you. Again, there may be resentment or revenge feelings that arise. These have to be worked on individually. Lots of hearing from the other person's higher self, higher soul. You can write a letter to them, you can record a voice to them, you can do all of this in your imagination. The main thing is that you get your heart in the right place before you ever have a discussion with them about anything like this. If ever you do. You're the number one priority in this healing, and you must put yourself first and not demand of others that they meet your needs. You must meet them yourself in whatever ways that you can. And if you, for whatever reason, can't meet your needs in a moment, go easy on yourself. Get a snack. Lay down, do some breathing. Whatever it is that you can do, or just, allow for in your life, even if it's not your immediate need. Give yourself that. So I hope that you found this helpful. And this is more of a guided journey that I would love to facilitate more of these kinds of journeys with you. I've kind of moved on in my need to try and meditate, and this is more of a spoken journey that I'm trying to take us on with little bits of visualization and going into the imagination, but a lot of it is very vocal, and the breathing is just something that you can, if you needed more time to breathe, for example, on a journey like this, I want you to be able to feel free to pause the video at any time if it feels heavy doing this work. It also might be good for another time. There's no rush with this kind of work. I know that we feel rushed to be better and do better, and clear all of the negative stuff out of our lives so that we can feel good about who we are and not have that inner critic in there so often judging us. But at the end of the day, you have to be okay with who you are right here, right now. Only then are you going to be able to keep doing this work. If you've got an inner critic in there that is shaming you, judging you, or maybe an inner critic outside of you, it's going to be a lot harder to keep wanting to practice this kind of self-work and to be better. But with practice and with love for yourself, it will be easier. It really will. So I would just recommend, in ending this video, that you just think of all the times that you have either felt good about yourself or done something that you're proud of. Just really giving your inner self, your inner child, that positive parental love, that support, that acknowledgement of your achievements, no matter how big or small. Be that parent, reparent yourself. Be that person to you. Only you know what you really need in that space, and you can give it to yourself. And if you can't, don't beat yourself up about it. Just give yourself some time to do other things, right? This is a healing journey after all, and it's a journey for a reason. You go from place to place. You don't just get it all done in one setting, in one sitting. There's time and space involved in this, so just go easy on yourself, okay? And take care of each other, and sending lots of love your way.